Hi, I'm Amber.
And hi, I'm Brenda, and this is the Minority Millennial Money Podcast.
Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Minority Millennial Money. Today, we're going to talk about some things that the rich do. And Amber, can you tell us a little bit about where we got these points?
Yeah, so me and Brenda are really avid on Twitter. We're just like all over Twitter, pretty much all day. It's like my whole life. Anyway, so we have friends on Twitter, everything, a whole life on Twitter. And anyway, there's a lot of money people who tweet all the time. And one of them that we both saw post is called the Millennial Money Woman. And she posted a bunch of tweets about 11 things that the rich do differently.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a few of them. One of them is that they don't quit. So what do you think about that?
So, yeah, I mean, like, I think that like people who have money, like self-made money, I do think that they work hard, they work a lot of hours. When they get rejected, they continue. They don't let it, dissuade them from doing it. What I've seen about with a lot of people who are just coming up on, making money or, are still in sort of like a poverty situation is that they're sort of emotional or mental, like, I don't know, like
endurance.
like they get down easily. So like if something doesn't work out for them, if they go try to sign up for classes at a community college and they miss the deadline, it's like they'll be like, oh, I missed the deadline. Like,
Oh, well, I guess I won't go.
yeah, I guess I'm not worth it. I guess like it's not for me to go to school. And it's like, no, like
Email somebody.
exactly. You wait till there's a new deadline, like keep going. And I feel like their
Right.
confidence is so low. And I see that as a really big difference between people who have money and people who don't. And I think we both know, based on our backgrounds and based on where we are in life right now, we probably, both know a lot of people on both sides. You think that's true?
Right. I think some of it is like just having grit, right? Like I'm learning that even more now in doing a PhD. It's like actually my goal is not to be perfect or to always get it right, but just to always be growing. And like if I quote unquote fail, like for example, last semester I actually did miss a deadline and I forgot to submit an assignment and I got a 0. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got a 0 in a PhD. Like I could have just been like, well, I guess I'm just not cut out for this. Like I quit. Here's your scholarship back. But I was like, oh, well, I'll just make a B in the class and I got to keep going. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
And I think you're right. And I think also you have to have an attitude of being proactive instead of reactive. Like,
Yes.
not just wait for things to happen to you, but think in advance, like, how can I set myself up in the best possible way for this?
Yes.
Right. Like, for example, I'm hearing a lot about what's going to be required of me in my 3rd year. And hearing from people who did particular things that got them a leg up. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to go do those things.
Yep.
Right. And that kind of goes with investing in your network and seeking high quality mentors, which were 2 of Millennial Money Woman's other tweets. So what do you think about that?
I think that's definitely true. I mean, like, I'm always trying to figure out what's the secret, right? Because there are secrets.
There are.
Honestly, that's how I stumbled upon the military. Like, like I never heard of the reserves. I didn't know that you can do the military part-time. I didn't know that you can, have a part-time job, especially like as a lawyer, as a doctor. But yeah, there's a lot of secrets and I just listen. Like I always have my ears open. I'm always proactive about Googling things. Like if I'm sitting here and I don't have anything to do, I'm watching TV, I'm Googling, how do I make money? What are 10 good side hustles? What are people doing? How are people rich? Like, what do they do to create wealth? Like the information is out there for you. And so
Exactly.
it's funny, a lot of people text me and they're like, like, how do you know all this? And I'm just like, Google. I have the same access to Google as you do. like we all have the same Wi-Fi plan. Right? Like you're
Do you
texting.
have 24 hours in the day? Because I have 24 hours of the day.
Yeah, like I'm just looking for the information. Like I'm always like, if I meet somebody, I'm always like, if they're saying like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm like, oh, how, what is that? Like, what are you doing? Like, how did you do that? Like, you have to work the room. You have to figure out what's going on. You can't just sit there and, talk about Kim Kardashian all day and wonder why, things aren't working out. You got to have your ears to
For
the
real.
ground. I don't know if that's like a journalism thing. Like, I studied journalism in college. And so I'm always like trying to figure out what's going on, what's the story, who's doing what. Like, I'm always doing that all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I do a similar thing, and maybe this is just my personality, but I'm very connected within my community, right? So like I feel like just naturally I've developed good relationships with people who are influential, and they have kind of organically taken me under their wing, and I've also taken other people under my wing who then go on and do cool things and think about me, right? And this is both professionally and personally. So you don't have to be like uh fake about it, right? Like, oh, or even solicit mentors, but really to just get out, find people maybe in your community, and it doesn't have to be in your geographical community, but it can be like online, like the way that you said, we're always on Twitter, and we've met like so many cool people through that and learned a lot of things. Because yeah, we live in an age where information is abundant and free,
Yep.
and you just have to have the critical thinking skills to know what's reliable information that you can actually use and what's not. I think that's an important skill as well. But as far as like mentors, we've both been clear that within our families, we don't have a lot of resources as far as financially, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't make it financially. That just means we have to figure out how to do it.
Right.
Another thing, speaking about, communities of color, and they've talked about this on another podcast, which I don't know if they're recording anymore, but they were called El Camino Fi. It was like a Spanish and English based podcast. And they did talk about, in our communities, and you've mentioned this too, we like to show off when we have money, right? Like your family wanted you to have a BMW, and like my family did too. And you want to have the nicest clothes, and you want to have a huge house. But one thing that Millennial Money Woman talks about is that one of the things that rich people do differently is that they're frugal and they don't spend on lavish, expensive things.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely true. Like, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, I'm sure, but we've talked about this on self-worth, net worth episode,
Mm-hmm.
where I was talking about, like I don't really need a lot of flashy things because one, I don't want to alert people to the fact that I have money.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you, when you see me, I want you to be like, oh, she got that from Target. Like she doesn't have any money. That's what I want you to see me. I don't need to get
Mm-hmm.
robbed. You know what I mean? Like I don't need people to ask me questions on the street. I don't need any of it. I don't want any smoke, as the kids say. So, I don't know. I do know a lot of people who have a lot of money, and yeah, they just dress in normal clothes. They don't have a really nice car. They'll have an old car. They'll have, a rundown kind of house. They don't want all the Great Gatsby kind of talks about this. If anybody's read the Great Gatsby before, where he talks about old money and new money. I don't know if you ever read that book, but um, it was so funny. He goes to these parties and he talks about like new money and how new money people have all these like jewels and riches and beautiful homes, and how old money just has like normal, it's like normal houses.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And another thing is, and I think this one's important just as a healthcare provider, was that she said rich people tend to be healthy. And this goes with like a whole constellation of issues that are under the social determinants of health umbrella. But people of color tend to have more chronic illness.
Yeah.
And if you're always sick, it's hard to work and develop skills and make money, right? So at a root level, we have to take care of ourselves, exercise, eat well, make sure that you're not gonna get a big surprise medical issue
Mhm.
because you just weren't paying attention.
Right. Yeah, the one thing though that I will say about that is that, like, I just want to address the fact that, like, sometimes people in poverty, they can't eat better because of a variety of reasons. Either there might be in
For
a
sure.
desert, they might be on food stamps. I remember those days. You only have $400 a month. You're not going to
Mm,
buy fresh food that's going to go to waste, right? You're going to buy canned goods. You're going to buy chips. You're going to buy stuff with a lot of preservatives so that you can stretch that food for a long time. Um, you
for
know,
sure.
Same thing with, if you have bad health, like, you can't do a lot of preventative medical appointments because a lot of times the medical, the free medical welfare program that we have in the US at least, doesn't really cover. From what I understand, it
Mm,
covers most like emergencies. I don't really know the ins and outs, but I just know that I know a lot of people in my neighborhood, we didn't go to preventative appointments. I only started doing that when I got a full-time job after law school and I had health insurance. And I read that the preventative appointments were free. And so to me, I was like, oh my God, like, I gotta go. Like, every year it says this is free. Like, I could just go there. It's like, like, they can like check me out and I can know in advance if something's wrong with my teeth or
right.
my health or whatever. So, I just want to like point that out, that like a lot of these things are come from, because of
Privilege.
your financial situation. Yeah.
Right. Right. To be able to get an annual physical, to take time off work, to go to the doctor, to have transportation,
Yeah.
and to be able to implement any changes that your doctor tells you, which may be more costly,
Yeah.
is a big privilege, right?
Yeah.
So I think, no, that's a fair point. But on the other hand, we should be aware to be able to do whatever we can.
Yes. Yes. And you
Yeah.
do family medicine, right?
Yes,
So you probably see this a lot, or you may
I
see.
do. I do. And it's, I worked mostly with older people. And so I saw what a lifetime of not taking care of yourself looks like. And
Mm.
even if you happen to be rich at that point, you can't enjoy it
Mm.
because you're not healthy, right?
Wow.
You may want to travel all over the world, but if you have an oxygen tank to carry around, like, is it really feasible? I mean, it is, but do you really want to do it that way? You know?
That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a lot of patients with money, but I did notice that the ones who did, they were not as sick. I probably only saw them once or twice a year.
Wow.
Yeah, but my chronically ill patients, those were the ones who I knew were having trouble paying their light bill,
Wow.
or they needed fans in their house in the summer because they couldn't afford to pay the AC bill,
Mm.
you know.
What do you think contributes to that? Like, what are they doing, do you think, over the course of their lives that they end up so ill? Is it their food or is it lack of exercise? Like, what is it?
I mean, it's the constellation of experiences that people in poverty have, right? A stressful work, stressful life leads to having a poor diet. Who wants to exercise when they're worried about paying rent,
Yeah.
right? So just a lifetime of social stress, racial stress, not having access to an education, perhaps having children. And so then, it's harder to go back to school when you have kids.
Yeah.
All of those things, right? Having several children. For women like us, 50 years ago, birth control was just coming out. So
Right.
not having children at this age was just not even an option.
Right.
It was bound to happen. So anyway, I don't want to digress too much on that. The last point was they save and invest, which is kind of what we're all about.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, when you're poor too, like, I remember having this conversation in law school with a couple of people, and they were telling me that people were poor because they had bad money habits. And I remember getting really upset about it because, and these were people of color, by the way. They were just,
Oh,
they were very privileged and they had never really, probably never really encountered people in true poverty. and they were really just like removed from the culture and from poverty. But they were telling me like, yeah, like, why do poor people have iPhones? Like, whatever,
Oof.
like they shouldn't have nice things. They go to hair appointments. That's why they're poor. And I remember being like, listen, you guys understand? And this conversation sort of came up, with all the stimulus check stuff that's come out recently, and people are upset that poor people are, going to Best Buy and buying whatever with their stimulus. And I was like, do you think about all the extra money, right, that people get when they're poor over the course of their lifetime? Let's say it's
Extra.
yeah, extra money, whatever. Let's, a stimulus check or some sort of windfall where they get extra money. Let's say, they make,
Tax returns.
yeah, exactly, $20,000, $30,000, right? Like, let's say that's how much they get over their whole lifetime. I don't know how much it is, 30, 40,000, whatever, per person.
Yeah.
Is that enough to get them out of poverty? No. And they know that. Poor people know that. They know that this extra $2,000 isn't going to get them out. It's not enough for them to
Change their life.
yeah, it's not enough to enroll in an education program. Usually, it's not enough to put food on their table for the rest of their lives. It's not enough to do anything. So what do? They buy something that's going to make them be a little bit more
Happy.
comfortable in their poverty situation. They get their hair done, forget about themselves for a couple weeks. They get a phone so they can text people, and at least that's some fun that they can have while they're in that situation. And so I don't blame them for doing
Yeah.
it. But I will say, like, once you start making money and get on a path where things can be better, um, you know, you have to change that poverty mindset over. So if I was in myself as a lawyer, still in that mindset, like from where I grew up, it was like, oh my God, like, yes, like, let me get all the stuff. Like, yeah, that would be problematic. Like, you got to know when to switch over those mindsets. So that's like what I'll say about my opinion on that.
Right. And it's just very ignorant to make assumptions about what people in a different social class do and how they live if you've never lived in that.
Yeah.
Right. It's presumptuous, and we're just trying to help people who are at that little cusp,
Yes.
right? Who are like, they have the potential, they have the skills, maybe they're just not organized or they don't know what to do exactly, but they're like just gonna like go over the little hump and then be able to earn money, save it, invest it, and be comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not advocating to like be super rich. I mean, you're going to be on fat fire, but I don't think that if I were to make double what I make now, and I have before, that I would be much happier.
No.
Right? It's like my happiness really comes from my relationships and my work and what I'm passionate about. But I wouldn't really be able to enjoy those things if I wasn't financially stable.
Right.
And I think that's the point, right? Is like establish this good financial foundation so that the other meaningful things in life are more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Like having a kid, neither of us have kids, but like now I would be okay, right? I'd be financially stable enough to have a child. But like 10 years ago, that would have been so hard.
I would not have.
Right. But a lot of women do, right? And so they kind of get on the long track to becoming financially stable.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think those were some of the good points to cover from that list. And if anybody has any questions or comments, please DM us, email us, tweet at us. All of our info is on the website mmmoney.org. And I'm almost Brenda on Instagram. I do have it private, but you can try to add me and I'll accept you. And do you want to tell people your social media?
Yes, I'm at Money Moves Auth, AUTH.
On Twitter?
Yes, on Twitter.
Yes. Cool. All right. See y'all later.
Bye.